All right, it's 3:11 p.m. West African time, and of course, it's time for Security 247 on Echo 89.7 FM, fresh on your mind. How are we doing today? It's a beautiful Saturday, and I'm so excited. It's been a restful one, and I'm sure you had an amazing week and a fantastic experience as well. How are we doing? Fathers, mothers, children, uncles, aunties, wherever you're listening from, well, how are we doing today? Is yet another opportunity to educate ourselves and, of course, enlighten ourselves on how best we can safeguard our family, protect our society, and ensure that we have our security top notch at every point in time. My name is Patience Osinake, your host on the show. And, of course, every Saturday we delve into best practices of security and child safeguarding and family protection on Echo 89.7 FM, first on your mind. I am a child safeguarding officer, family protection practitioner as well. Pardon me, an early childhood educator, and it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm excited, and as you know, we don't do this alone. We try to bring expert into the building. We also open the phone lines at some point to also have you come share with us as well. So today is going to be an interesting one. We have something very insightful to share with you, and you know that you can be part of the show. We're going to be calling out the phone lines when the time is right. Remember, this show is powered by the Lagos State government to bring to you on best security tips and advices, and of course, that could help you to live in a sane society. Today on the show, I have two amazing personalities with me, and before I let the cat out of the bag, I just want to say thank you to them. Let me thank them in advance before you get to meet them on the wonderful work that you're doing. And of course, the topic that we're sharing on today is something that I know that for a lot of us, I remember talking about this during the week, sharing with a contact of mine. And she was like, oh, Patience, when you talk about drug abuse, it's something very huge. It's something that, sounds very ambiguous. A lot of people don't want to have that conversation. I just want to say thank you to them. Okay, when you get to meet them, you get to know those that I'm thanking in advance. Today we're going to be discussing drug abuse prevention, treatment, and recovery. And with me in the studio, I have big personalities and, of course, amazing people that are doing so well in the space of drug abuse prevention. I have Oluwani Femi Silas. Yeah, Oluwafemi Silas is the executive director of Stampa Drug Abuse Initiative, and he's also a partner, Foundation for a Drug-Free World, and a member of the Federal Road Safety Corps. In the building. Hi, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm very fine. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you here, and well done to you and your team on the amazing work that you're doing at the initiative. And of course, we have here a superwoman as well, Blessing Igbani. She's the director of operations, Stampa Drug Abuse Initiative. She's a social worker and an amazing event manager. How are you doing, Blessing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you too, and well done. I know I had to give thanks before by introducing you to. I want to say well done on the work that you're doing. I took our time to read more about your profile and check out your initiative during the week, and I could tell that you're doing so well. This topic is so dear to my heart: drug abuse, prevention, treatment, and recovery, because of my work in communities and interactions with families and young teenagers. And I have had to come across. I'm not trained, in drug abuse prevention stuff, but like just we're discussing before we walked into the studio that some of these issues are intertwined. They're all kind of related. All right, so today we're going to be discussing on how we can prevent drug abuse, in our society, and of course look at treatment and recovery for people or young ones who have been deeply into this. Let me ask Oluwafemi, why the interest in drug abuse prevention? What is the big deal? Why do you choose to do this? You could be doing something else, running a supermarket or running some shopping thing, but this is what you choose to do. Why drug abuse prevention?
Thank you so much. Over the years, I've discovered that drug abuse has become an epidemic in our society. It will shock you to know that pupils in primary school now abuse drugs. I've been to over 70 schools in Lagos and Ogun State to educate them about the dangers of drug abuse. And I've seen destinies being destroyed. I see young people who have bright future, but as a result of drug abuse, they couldn't achieve their goals and dream in life. So that really motivated me to start the campaign against drug abuse.
Wow, that's interesting. And how has the experience been before at Stanford Abusive Initiative?
Yeah, it's been awesome because we've been to school where we actually enlighten people against drug abuse. For me, it was something I witnessed growing up, or I live in an environment where these things happen. So it's
Mm,
something I saw growing up, and I saw how friends I actually grew up with, we actually drifted away from us, and then drugs actually took
mm,
them, and we actually witnessed people dying of it, and you're so helpless, you really can't help them. And some of them were actually very bright, while we were in
mm,
primary school, and then we had lots of aspiration, but then along the way, drugs took them away. So we've actually been to schools where we were able to talk to, people in primary school who
mm.
actually come up to you, after our presentation and say, okay, ma, I've done this before, but I actually want to stop. But my friends always bringing in, what do I do?
Wow.
So you see us actually engaging them and then, involving their parents, in it. And then, okay, maybe when we get into prevention, we dive more into that.
Yeah, Blessing, I'd like you to share with our audience, how do you explain drug abuse to a lame person, an average person out there? How do we explain this? Because sometimes when we mention this, it sounds very big and, just break it down. What does it mean? What does it mean in context?
Okay, this is just what drug abuse means. Drug abuse is simply when you take a substance. It may not actually be drugs. Sometimes
Okay.
you see people taking some of that substance that actually give them that high. And then you find yourself taking it over again. You develop a dependency syndrome.
Mm,
Something you can't do without. Something that you know the harmful effect, but you still go back using it. Despite the harmful effect. So that's just what drug in the layman language. Let me use something that is very familiar to us. Let's say prescription drugs.
okay.
When a doctor or a pharmacy prescribe a drug to you and say you need to take this 3 times a day and all of those things, probably because you're having pain or whatever issue you're going there with, and then you did not use it the way the doctor prescribed it.
Mm,
That means you actually abuse the drug. So that's simply in the layman language what drug abuse means. And of course, there's also
mm,
substance abuse. This is when you also take some other things that make you forget a pain or forget the sorrow you're going through or make you want to or feel as if you're not in this world the way they say that I want to feel high. Or I want to go to the cloud.
mm.
When you take things that makes you feel that way, you've actually abusing a substance.
Wow.
Okay, in
Yeah.
addition to that,
Okay.
let me try and define drug abuse, then I will break it down. Drug abuse is the use of certain chemicals for
Mm,
the purpose of creating pleasurable effects on the brain. Now, our brain is wired in such a way that you want to repeat experiences that makes you feel good.
mm,
Now, what drugs that are addictive does to your brain is that it secretes a chemical called dopamine. Now, this gives you intense pleasure. You feel happy, you feel excited. So you need to take more of the drugs to chase the high.
mm,
Now, let me try and break it down a little bit. Now, the brain is very, very sensitive. Now, when drugs that are addictive gives you that dopamine pleasure,
mm.
you get excited. You want to take more of that drug so that you can retain the same high. Now, in the process of that, you discover that you begin to take more drugs. Now, there is what we call tolerance.
Okay.
Tolerance means that you need to take more drug to get the same effect,
Wow.
large quantity of that drug to get
Wow.
the same effect. So let me proceed further by also saying that drug abuse, for the purpose of this discussion, we can break it down or classify it into three groups. Now we have number one, we have depressants,
Okay.
drugs. There are drugs under this classification, depressants. This cause depression of the brain faculties. In
Mm,
other words, it will slow you down. A good example is alcohol, heroin.
mm,
They are they are depressant drugs.
mm,
Now the second classification is what I call stimulant.
mm.
This cause stimulation of the brain. Now you become hyperactive. You become agile. You are ready to fight. You are ready to kill
Mm. Wow.
because of the effect of that stimulant. And a good example is cocaine and methamphetamine. Now, the last classification of drug abuse for the purpose of this discussion is what we call hallucinogen. I will break it down. Drugs under this classification, when you take them, you begin to hear voices. You begin to see things that are not real. When a trailer is coming, it will look like a bicycle. You are ready to fly. We use this term out of this world experience. In other words, you are in another world entirely. You are detached from reality.
That's very concerning. How are young people getting access to all of these substances? From your experience and engagement with the communities and the schools that you've had to, share with, how do you think the young people are accessing all of this?
Yeah, the number one way they get access to all of this is through friends, peer pressure, through friends. You know, some will tell you, okay, there's a school we actually went to. Let me share a practical experience. There's a school we went to. After speaking about leaving, when one of the students quickly rushed in and then went to the principal's office and they were called in, and then there's this shisha. There's a shisha syrup, and it
Okay.
has strawberry written on it, that a teacher, someone actually came to report that he saw something that we described
Okay.
with a student, that this is not the first time the student brings it. And they were called in, so we collected it, we interviewed it. Where did you get it from? Oh, one of my uncle, my elder brother just came back from the uni. So he has in his bag. I see him, he's always taking it. So I just, once in a while, I sneak it from
Oh my.
from his bag.
Wow.
Do you understand? This person was in GSS 3. Yeah, GSS 3.
Hmm.
So you ask, how did they actually? That's actually a practical where they get it from. So it's from families, from friends, and then someone actually brought it in, and then the people, why they brought it to school, some of the schoolmates do not even know what it is. The class, they don't know what it is,
And they
but I
just
told them
want
that
to-
this is strawberry, it's sweet, it's nice. Let's take it and all of those things. And I think some of them has actually tasted the first time he brought it, and they said, "Oh, this is very nice. This is very sweet. Make me feel so cool. Well, can you actually bring more when coming?" And we even discussed on how to contribute money to ensure they give to him,
more.
and then he keeps buying. And then there's one other one. This one was actually in primary school. It was a mother that was sharing that a her daughter came home and was sharing with her that a friend, someone in her classmate in primary 4,
Okay.
said he takes, I don't want to mention the
Yeah,
name.
sure.
So a particular drink
Okay.
and then another sweet, they mix it together, that each time he takes it, it makes him sleep and feel so cool and so good. And then he was introducing it to others. And they said the daughter got curious, that why will you mix these two things together to start with? And why are you excited to make that? Why does it make you feel the way you're explaining? Is it actually normal, mommy, for you to take this? And they were like, those are some of the things they mix up. There's a music that she talked about mixing things together and then taking
And
them
getting them.
and getting that high just from primary school. So they get it from their peers, they get it from home.
From home. Speaking to the home, because like we all know, family is the smallest unit, and a lot of these things